Greetings, Eric Miscoll here on the show floor, IPC Apex 2025. Have the pleasure this year again of speaking with Frank Mullany. He is the Roadmaps Director for iNEMI. I love your job. You get to kind of look forward. I remember talking to you last year, and it's just, you know, where a lot of people are dealing with the present, you actually kind of get to look out, right, and kind of talk about things. So what's new with the iNEMI roadmaps?
Well, since the last time we were talking, we've a couple of new major topics up on the website for anybody to look at. One's in the domain of complex integrated systems, so where we're looking at what happens when you continually miniaturize systems, increasing the amount of functionality and different types of functionality inside a small compact space. And you're looking at where do you do the integration, where do you do the connectivity, at the chip, at the module, at the board level. And then we looked at it from various angles: test, design, sustainability, and so on. Yeah. So that was one. But the really big one that has come out is in the area of board assembly. Something that we've got a new roadmap section there that we feel is quite unique, covering the gamut in that space in board assembly.
And that's the area that I was certainly interested in. So talk about the challenges for board assembly based on what you're seeing.
There, the teams have pulled together quite an extensive view of the different challenges based off different drivers. So you can start with things like reliability, so voiding in solder paste. You look at problems around miniaturization. So simple things like what happens when your compliant pin in a press fit protrudes, and you're now dealing with much smaller form factors, much higher frequencies, and starting to act like an antenna. We're dealing with challenges around sustainability. We have conformal coatings that contain PTFE, which is a PFAS material. Efficiency. You look at reflow ovens, driving down the energy consumption there, the nitrogen dioxide usage. What's the roadmap for that? So the teams went right across a very broad set of subjects there and have produced quite an in-depth set of documentation for people to look at.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. Yeah, and I think board assembly is a fairly well-established discipline, right? But yet you're also looking out in the future, right? You have this futuristic view of it, especially, and how do you have to, with complex integrated circuits, especially in the evolution there, how does that factor into what you say?
That's exactly the problem the teams are now looking at. The content that we have at the moment is very much focused on the 3-5 year mark. So evolutionary, incremental type improvements. Yep. And at the session we had earlier today here in IPC Apex, we actually asked the audience, what's next? We had Intel giving a very good overview from the HPC side of things, where they were talking about what happens when you go to, 10,000 pins per device connecting onto the board, and what that means in terms of warpage, in terms of sockets. So those challenges of miniaturization are just going to get worse, increased densification. But there are other areas. We're looking down the road at the increasing incorporation of things like MEMS, optical systems, for example, in AR, VR glasses. And when you have a sub-assembly with an optical component and you need to do manual alignment of that, what does that mean when you're trying to assemble that on a board with electronic components? So we're now looking at a range of problems due to the heterogeneity of the systems we're trying to implement. So as well as compacting everything down, we have a heterogeneity challenge for board assembly. And some of the ideas we're discussing were around, well, what if I do 2 passes on my reflow for different types of components? Can you manage that? So these are the kinds of challenges we're looking at further out. And that's before you even start looking at more exotic technologies like how does 3D printing fit into board assembly going forward?
Yeah. So tell me, one of the big topics at the show and in the industry has been AI. In the work that you do utilize any AI in some type of a supportive function to help you with your road mapping, or?
It still comes down to expertise from key subject matter experts across the industry. So, you know, you look at generative AI and large language models, it's about looking at what's already been published.
Exactly.
Whereas we're trying to bring teams together to brainstorm and to try and come to some kind of consensus about what the future looks like.
Right.
That's beyond AI at this stage, at least.
Yeah, I think, most AIs, I think, have a date, right? They say we're good current till September 2024, whatever it might be, right? And then prior to, anything post that, they're dismissing.
Yeah, it's not there. It just really isn't there.
What is your roadmap telling about more the longer term future for EMS OEM type companies, right? Who have their OEMs who have internal manufacturing still? How are you viewing the evolution there?
So, for the likes of EMSs, there are an interesting set of challenges coming up at a structural level. If you look at the diversity of technologies, each of which requires equipment investment to try and do the assembly, so that's challenge number one. At the same time, you're looking at miniaturization, so therefore the feature size is getting smaller. You have to have better control over the cleanliness in your operations. And the line starts to get very blurred between, a large substrate in a package and a small module in a high dense substrate. Like where does one leave off and the other begin? So some of the capabilities look more like what might be in the OSAT domain, or for the packaging guys, or even the semiconductor guys. So there are challenges there for the EMS guys because of the technology and the investment needed. However, they have one big advantage, and that is they are very used to dealing with low volume, high mix components, multiple products coming through from a multiplicity of customers, dealing with a very large and very high degree of variety in the supply chains. These are things that the OSATs don't particularly like. Having to manage all of these, what essentially are cultural issues in the way you organize and run your business. And as a wise man once told me, culture eats strategy, and in particular technology strategy for lunch. So the EMSs actually are still well placed, particularly for the high margin stuff where you have lower volumes, more diverse mix of things. They're well positioned to handling that, despite the fact that they're going to have big investments in terms of, a capital investment in terms of technologies to get to grips with over the coming years.
And I should have asked at the beginning, your roadmaps, it's for the global industries we're talking. You're not talking about, you don't do any distinction or differentiation by region, or do you?
No, not really. And we're very much a technology focused roadmap, and technology it's region agnostic. And we do try and pull in a range of views from as broad a community as possible. So just, iNEMI members, yes, but also we take in iNEMI non-members as well, people who come from organizations which have no association with iNEMI. And you have to be able to take that global view when you're trying to get those inputs in. Now, bear in mind, we're at a pre-competitive phase. It's all about, collaborative issues that people are willing to identify. We don't include confidential information because it's publicly available, the data. It has to be non-competitive from that point of view. And that makes things easier. It's easier to have those conversations on a global basis.
And I'm assuming roadmaps are iterative too, right? It's not like one and done, right? Here I get to finish that. It's constantly evolving and changing.
That's where the online format that we moved to really works for us, because we're no longer talking about a 2-year cycle, and at the end of the 2-year cycle you produce another 300-page PDF, right? We're trying for a much more compact format, max about 10 pages of material on a single page online, mainly around, mostly of that is going to be on tables, where we just try and outline things over time. So we try to get to a very compact online format, and one of the big advantages of that is that we can easily update. I've had people come up to me and say, "Hey Frank, we're missing this small element." One guy told me, What about in press fit? You haven't anything about the materials that are used in the vias, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, look, give me some data. I can get it up onto the roadmap inside a couple of weeks. No problem.
Yeah.
We'll run it by a few of the experts, see if they agree with you. We can do an update very quickly, very rapidly with an online format.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's the benefit of that, isn't it? So what's next for the roadmap?
Well, there's firstly, in the board assembly space, we're going to try and pull together a team to roadmap out those longer term vision that we were talking about earlier on this evening. So that's one team we're going to be pulling together. But in the next few weeks, people should keep an eye out for what we're doing on packaging and heterogeneous integration. There are, for those in the domain, they're well aware that there's a large number of roadmaps out there already in that space. IEEE's HIR, SRC's MAPT, UCLA's MOR-HIP. So we said, okay, we're not going to replicate that. Okay. And what we've decided to do is we're trying to provide a little bit of a guide for somebody who's fresh to the space, very short, about 5 pages in length, and where we're linking in directly into the individual pages on the other various roadmaps for the various sections for the best content right throughout the selection of roadmaps.
I like that. Yeah.
So that's what we're going to try and get that out in the next few weeks. Yeah. So, keep an eye out for us.
Yeah. So are those other acronyms you spouted out, are they being as collaborative in return as you are? Are you a...
Yeah, they are. They have no issues. Like I was in discussions with one of them the other day, giving them the heads up that this is what we were going to do. And the response was, yep, go for it, Frank. We love it. After all, we're pushing traffic into their roadmap. And they said, we were wondering how we were going to deal with some of the topics you guys have that are unique, PCB board assembly, for example, and so we might take a similar approach. No. So, different roadmaps just point at each other for the best content between, and it saves a lot of time because it's the same small set of experts that we're all drawing on to create these roadmaps. So
and a collaborative model is always good. So I think it serves. So, well, good. Okay. Well, Frank, hopefully we keep getting to do this at Apex in the future, because I always enjoy this. And like I said, I love your Jay, because you get to focus on the future, and not too many people are stuck in the today, right? So
you have to get from today to tomorrow.
Yes.
And the question is, how do you do that?
No, exactly right. Frank,
thank you very much.
I appreciate it, sir. Thank you.